Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the CertiK Security Leaderboard Showcase. I'm your host, Aaron Leibowitz, and as you all know well by now, in the showcase, I host a guest for a live AMA where we discuss their work with CertiK, the security leaderboard, and we throw in some live questions from you, the viewers. Our goal is to raise the standards of security in the DeFi ecosystem. The security leaderboard found at CertiK.com is a free tool to help you DYOR. Today, I'll be joined by the Terraform Labs team. Before we bring them on, let's go ahead and look at their leaderboard listing. This is the landing page at CertiK.com. Scrolling down, you'll see many top projects. Terra is sitting at number 3 on the leaderboard right now with a 97 security score. Here you can click into the audit. Continuing down, we'll see the Skynet security primitives. You see the sentiment analysis. You can scroll through and see changes in sentiment over time, top Twitter keywords aggregated. And moving down, we see liquidity metrics. This is actually ERC20 liquidity metrics that we're seeing here. So that would be Uniswap and SushiSwap that we're pulling that from, not the Terra L1. Now let's bring on today's guests. Jason, Zion, how are you guys doing?
Good, how are you guys?
Awesome. Thrilled to have you guys on here. Why don't we start with a quick introduction from each of you and on Terraform Labs in general?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Jason, you want to start?
Yeah, I was just going to introduce myself. I'm Jason Stallings. I do developer relations at Terraform Labs, and my job is to work with developers and make sure they're successful building out what they want to build.
Excellent.
Yeah, so my name is Zion. I'm on the comms team at Terraform Labs. So I help with communications for different projects and do a variety of different things there, wear multiple hats. Yeah.
Awesome. Why don't you guys give a little intro on what Terraform Labs is, how it relates to Terra and the Terra ecosystem?
Yeah, sure. So Terra is the number 2 smart contract platform behind Ethereum. So there's a variety of different innovative protocols built on top of Terra, such as Anchor and Prism, which empower Terra's users. In addition to that, which is what Terra is really known for, is the decentralized stablecoins that they've created, which is things like UST. So UST is the most prominent stablecoin that they've created, and that powers the Terra ecosystem and the broader DeFi economy.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So moving on here, Terraform bills itself as programmable money for the internet. You guys are an L1 with a strong focus on stablecoins, as you mentioned, specifically to enable DeFi. Can you dive into a little bit the advantages of Terra as an L1 versus any of the competitors, and especially why stablecoins are the core of your offering?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can take that one, Jason. So there's a variety of different competitive advantages that Terra has in comparison to some of the other L1s. So a couple that come to mind are things like its speed, how cheap the transactions are. Transactions on Terra are typically less than $1, most of the time less than 50 cents. In addition to that, we have things like decentralized validator oracle structure, the largest decentralized stablecoin, which is UST, and then a variety of different innovative protocols built on the back of UST, things like Anchor and Prism. And as far as the stablecoins being the core focus, so the real idea here is believing in a decentralized economy, and this being the future that we're moving towards as a crypto society and as the broader society as well. And we believe that the decentralized economy needs decentralized money. So we believe it's important to expand access to that decentralized money. And that's what kind of underpins all of Terra's initiatives.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense to me. So if we want to wrap that up a little bit into some bullet points, we'd say low transaction fees are the number 1 competitive advantage, especially over ETH. And obviously, if we're looking to interact with complex smart contracts that require more than just one transaction, the ETH fees just skyrocket nowadays. It's really tough.
Yeah.
So being the number 2 smart contract platform with a focus on DeFi, I guess the low fees are super important to your user base. Can you dive into a little bit how you guys have sort of pushed that, educated the market on the fact that there are lower fees, that there are advantages to using Terra, and how you've gained some adoption there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think from an adoption perspective, it really comes down to, driving a lot of conversation around the why the blockchain focuses on one thing or another. And so for Terra, the whole idea and the whole motivation for builders and for the people in the community evangelizers is this idea of decentralized money for a decentralized economy. And so that's really, I think, what drives the narrative for like the affordable transaction fees and different things, like speed and other things like that. It's easier to kind of drive a narrative when people are themselves kind of disseminating that information because they believe in the idea underpinning the blockchain itself.
Absolutely. So looking at some of the apps built on Terra today, I think you mentioned Anchor and Prism. Can you tell us actually what those are, how they work, any more details on those?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take this one, and Jason is going to end up taking more of the technical questions. So I'm taking some of these ones. But so Anchor Protocol is a protocol on Terra that is a decentralized lending and borrowing platform. So what you can do on there, which is really cool, is you can take your UST stablecoins and you can earn a fixed interest rate of 19.5% per year. And this differs from a lot of other variable interest rate protocols where you're earning a yield that fluctuates over time. So the stable yield is one of the core features of Anchor Protocol. You can also borrow against your Luna and your Ethereum today, and I'm sure Anchor Protocol is going to be adding some more collateral assets on there as well in the near future, which would be cool. And so you can borrow UST against those assets, which is another cool feature of Anchor Protocol. And then from Prism's standpoint, this is a really innovative protocol that's coming to Terra later this month. And this allows you to refract your assets. So what you can do is you can split an asset like Luna into two different assets, being the principal component token, which has price exposure to the asset, and then the yield-bearing component of the token, which is the staking part of it. And that opens up, if you've been involved in the DeFi space, that opens up a variety of different strategies that you can utilize in the broader DeFi ecosystem. And so a lot of people are really excited about that. I would imagine that there's going to be over $1 billion on that protocol in a very short period of time.
Those are two fascinating dApps, actually. The 19.5% stable yield is a little bit hard to grasp as a concept. I mean, I'm just thinking about my savings account right now, all the money I don't have in crypto. Why would I ever keep that again if I can get 19.5% on my dollars?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. It's a lot of people see that and they wonder, how can this be real? How is this possible? And I think the magic of Anchor and what really sets it apart from other platforms is the fact that all collateral is actually staked. So in the case of Luna, the Luna is actually staked with a set of validators. In the case of Ethereum, that Ethereum is actually staked with, Ethereum 2 validators. And so when you deposit your Ethereum or Luna as collateral, we redirect the yield from the staking to the people who are lending UST. And so that's ultimately where that stable yield comes from. And, these loans are double to triple collateralized. So you can imagine the staking yield from that much collateral is more than enough to pay out that interest rate. And so it seems like magic, but behind the scenes, it's just leveraging proof of stake, revenue to generate those yields.
That makes a lot of sense. As far as sort of the refraction element of, I think that was Prism.
Yep.
You were talking about that opens up a lot of possibilities for you. And I can sort of imagine off the top of my head, the idea of being able to take a token that's staked and effectively leverage it while it's staked. It reminds me a little bit of the C tokens from Compound and how you could take your CDI or whatever and move it to another protocol and use it again, which opened up a lot of really interesting yield farming strategies early on in the DeFi space. What types of users do you think are going to be? Do you think it's going to be similar users who are doing complex yield farming strategies that are going to be taking biggest advantage of this?
I think it'll be a combination of both. And then Jason, if you want to give your thoughts on this as well, feel free. I personally view Prism as one of the most innovative protocols on DeFi that I've ever seen. And the reason is because it appeals to the beginner user in DeFi as well as the advanced user. So if you're a beginner user in DeFi, I mean, you can simply deposit your Luna in there and then get your Y Luna and P Luna. And what you can do is, if you really want to do a really simple strategy, let's say you didn't really care that much about the price exposure of Luna, you wanted more of a stable staking yield on your Luna. What you could do is you could sell your P Luna for more Y Luna, and now you increase your staking yield. And there, that's a simple example of what can be done with it. But there's actually a good graphic that the Prism team put out on Twitter that I think last time I looked at their Twitter, at least it was pinned. I'm not sure if it still is, but they have a graphic where they break down what you can do with Y Luna and P Luna, and in a nice visualized format like that, it simplifies it for the user. And so I think there's going to be a lot of people taking advantage of those strategies early on. In addition to that, I also think there's going to be a lot of arbitrage opportunities with Prism, and the reason for that is because of the pricing for assets like Y Luna and P Luna is going to be up to the market to decide. And so there's going to be, I think, pretty good arbitrage opportunities there for people that are into that as well. So it'll appeal to that user base as well.
Got it. I can definitely see that being a big appeal to arbitrage users, as that's been sort of a consistent place that people have looked to sort of earn positive equity in crypto since, I think early days of Mt. Gox, even people were looking to arb between exchanges. So there are a lot of old heads who really believe in the arb as the strongest strategy, especially maximalists.
Yeah.
So you guys are built on the Cosmos SDK, like Shentu Chain is, which obviously we have done here. Why did you guys choose Cosmos?
Yeah, so I can't exactly speak to, what Do Kwon had in his mind when he, chose the Cosmos SDK. What I can speak to is just the benefits that we've seen from working with it, and why, it's clearly it was a good choice for us. I think what's really cool about the Cosmos SDK is the team working on it has really put a lot of work into making the chain easily customizable. So in our case, where we were adding in this logic to support like a consensus enforced stablecoin, I think it really enabled the team to focus specifically on that logic and getting that logic really like nailed down and perfected, instead of also worrying about the consensus engine, like what's the P2P layer doing? Are these nodes talking to each other? Like you really get all of that stuff out of the box, which in terms of blockchain development, to be able to, like, I'm not sure if you've seen the Starport project, but they are they enable you to just scaffold a new blockchain in literally 15 minutes, and it's leveraging the Cosmos SDK. And I don't think you could beat that level of like efficiency. It's truly incredible. And yeah, I think we don't have any complaints about leveraging the Cosmos SDK so far. You also get IBC, right, which is just incredible. For anyone who's used IBC, you immediately realize that this is a superior user experience. I've used a ton of bridges where you send the money and then you're just on the other side praying, like, please show up on the other side. And so to be able to have a protocol that like actually enforces the bridging and can verify that funds made it to the other side. I think the list of why Cosmos SDK goes on for a while. It's just, I think, a really compelling solution.
I don't really have anything to add other than I completely agree. The sort of out of the box solution for you is really just nice, easy to use. I think the Shentu engineers would tell you exactly the same thing, and they have a lot of similar reasoning for why they chose that. Yeah, I think that Cosmos has really done a great job. And one thing you did mention is UI UX. It's been the pain point of all pain points in crypto since the beginning, in my opinion. I mean, still we're seeing sort of semi-mass adoption of NFTs right now. And how many people I see complaining on Twitter about MetaMask is confusing, connecting a wallet is difficult. It's really a pain, and the IBC bridge is really probably the best one, as you said, from that perspective. So speaking about bridging, cross-chain interoperability has been a big focus for you guys lately. Do you believe in a one chain to rule them all future, or more of a multi-chain world?
Yeah, I think, from a chain perspective, the way I like to think about this is, well, first and foremost, I believe in a multi-chain future. And Jason, you can add to this point as well. But personally, I think that it makes sense to me that you're going to have different applications on different blockchains. Even if one blockchain was able to handle like all applications, it'd be a pretty boring future to have only one blockchain that people can build off of. Having an element of choice in building is one of the nice things about building, right? You're able to decide for yourself what you want to build on top of, what you want to build, all sorts of stuff like that. And Do Kwon, actually, I was listening to an interview that he did, and he had a good point for this question, where he was saying it's kind of like if one chain rules them all, it's kind of like if everyone in the world owned an iPhone, right? It's a pretty boring reality to live in if everyone owns the same, phone, or if everyone's using the same blockchain. And that's kind of the way that I think about it. But I think Jason has some thoughts as well.
Yeah, I think of it as a way to really scale blockchains as well. I know one of the things that people talked a lot about in the early days of scaling blockchains was the idea of sharding, where you split up the data between multiple nodes so that each node doesn't need to have the entire state stored on it. I kind of see these specific blockchains or the mini blockchains as a form of sharding, where we're able to store the state for these applications on this chain, we store the state for these applications on this chain. Hopefully we've got some interoperability protocol that enables those chains and applications to reference and talk to each other. But yeah, I think if you're outgrowing a blockchain, let's say you're on Ethereum and you're just getting pushed out of blocks and your users are unable to get transactions through, you can take that to a side chain, a roll up, or another L1 like Terra, and regain some of that block space. And then the same thing could happen on one of the roll ups or the L2s, where you also start getting pushed out of the block. And then I think you should look at an application specific blockchain, right? If your application is really that important, maybe it's time to own the block space yourself. And so I think that's just a really cool trend we're seeing, and I'm here for it.
That's a really interesting take. I'd never thought of sort of a multi-chain world as a form of scalability, but I definitely see what you mean. The sharding analogy makes a lot of sense. I explain to people a lot. How I used to torrent videos? That was actually sharding, and the same technology is being used today for scaling solutions and for privacy solutions. I actually saw an interesting article recently by Ross Ulbricht about asynchronous neural networks for censorship resistant chains, basically a decentralized application where you can still filter the types of contents that you make sure you're not hosting any malicious content without a single source of censorship. And it was using that same idea of sharding.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah. Let's see. So you guys started with the Terra ETH bridge, that's correct?
Yep.
And no surprise, I mean, ETH is the biggest L1. It's the original. What bridges can we expect to see moving forward, if there are any plans?
Jason, you want to take that?
Yeah. So today we have a couple of bridging solutions online. There's the Terra Shuttle, which is our legacy bridge. And then we've been working closely with the Wormhole crypto team, and they've developed what I believe is a really robust bridge that is the user experience is pretty great and that transfers happen very quickly. So leveraging Wormhole and a little bit of our legacy bridge, we're able to bridge funds between Terra and Ethereum, which is the one we already mentioned. We can bridge to BSC, we can bridge to Harmony One, and we can also bridge to Solana. And that's just with one bridging solution. In the future, I know we're working with the Axelar team to bring UST to the Avalanche blockchain. We are working with the AnySwap team to bring UST to the Phantom blockchain. Really, one of our goals is we want UST to be everywhere that there's a demand or a need for it. And I think, anywhere where DeFi is happening, there's definitely a need for it. And then it's just about figuring out how we can best make that happen. How can we work with the protocols to incentivize, the right behaviors and the right actions. And so, really, if you're a blockchain and you need a decentralized stablecoin, please come talk to us and we'll be so happy to work with you and figure something out. That's the more that UST gets leveraged, I think the more that it's like a snowball, and looking forward to, making the snowball keep going.
Absolutely. And being the sort of stablecoin provider, first I actually want to talk about the bridges. I didn't realize that Wormhole offered you so many options today. That's really cool. Some surprising choices on there, like Harmony One. I was not expecting to hear mentioned, but I'm definitely going to have to take a look at the Wormhole bridge and play around with it.
I think you can also bridge to Osmosis. I think that's on the Terra bridge, so you should be able to do those ones.
Wow, that's super cool. I had no idea if that existed. I'm gonna have to go play around with that afterwards. So moving on to security, the reason we're here today, of course. You guys got an audit and Skynet. You guys didn't have any issues in the audit found above the minor level. What drove you to go ahead and implement the Skynet solution?
So I probably, I'm assuming that the audience that we're talking to here is somewhat security aware or security, friendly, but security is not like a set it and forget it type situation. I sometimes wish it was, where you just do security at the beginning of the project and then you're covered for eternity. Applications evolve, situations evolve as you add new collateral options, as you add new functionality. I think security really needs to be an ongoing process, and you can't ever win. It's just a constant battle against the evil forces out there who are trying to take you down. So I definitely thought Skynet, is a really cool solution to have continual coverage, and obviously the insights provided are really cool, and I'm very interested in potentially expanding it to other chains. Obviously, you guys are working with the Cosmos SDK, and it'd be nice to have some of the Rust stuff automatically scanned and handled. But yeah, I think it's super powerful, and yeah, I think it's a no-brainer.
We'd love to hear that, of course. And what you said about security being an ongoing solution is something I strongly agree with. I think all of us at CertiK believe in that. That's the reason for us building more than just an auditing service into on-chain monitoring, was exactly what you've just said here. The idea of you can't win with security, not losing is winning with security. It's always an uphill battle. It's a sort of cops and robbers type of deal, but trying to stay one step ahead is what we've prided ourselves on doing so far and plan to continue doing moving forward. So in building your ecosystem of dApps, how are you guys maintaining the security standards that you at Terraform Labs take with each of the projects built on top of the L1? It's as far as I know, not a permission chain. Anyone can build on top of it. So what do you do to ensure that the people building on top of it are good actors, building dApps that either make sense or at least take security seriously?
Yeah, I think we've been pretty lucky so far because most of the teams building on Terra like want to work with, TFL, the company, and they want, our insight and guidance on best practices and, basically what has worked for us. Can we reproduce that and recreate it for, many external teams? And so, I mean, a big part of that starts with audits, and we've got a grant program available to teams who are building on Terra where, if you need an audit, I think we definitely want to enable that and make sure that you get what you need to get to actually have the code reviewed and looked at by someone who's probably more familiar with security than you are. Other than that, I think, we've got a number of standards developed as a part of like the Cosmos WASM framework, which is the smart contract framework that's used on Terra. And so trying to stick to those standards as much as possible. There's the CW20 spec, which is our version of the ERC20 spec. And so, getting that standard like really well defined and then making sure that that standard is audited, and then it's really cheap and easy for teams to just leverage it to basically, not introduce security issues into their applications. And so I definitely am very interested in like expanding those standards. I think there's a standard for multi-sig wallets. There's a standard for NFTs, but it's still like, you look at Ethereum, they've got thousands of these standards, and many of them have well battle-tested reference implementations. And, it's very easy to like review the status of different items. And so I think, as there's more Cosmos WASM chains coming online, which means there's more developers who are, interested in this and contributing to this. And I'm very interested in collaborating with these other teams and, building out a really solid standard library of like battle tested, audited, proven code. And I think that just enables people to move a lot quicker and just really accomplish what they need to accomplish.
Absolutely. It's sort of the idea of having questions answered on Stack Overflow and being able to actually reference that as opposed to something brand new where you are the trailblazer, sort of breaking ground yourself, making those mistakes the first time and writing about them so others can learn from you. It's definitely more difficult to be that first in the space.
It can be rewarding though.
Absolutely. There's nothing like being the first to do something new and innovative that, especially if it gets adopted afterwards, you can really be like, hey, I was here first. I broke the ground for everyone else to be able to build what we have today. So guys, moving on here, I mentioned on the Skynet leader, your Skynet listing, that the decentralized exchanges we were pulling data from are Uniswap and SushiSwap, which are ERC20 compatible dexes, not Terra L1. Can you explain how Luna can exist on these exchanges and why, sort of what's going on there?
Yeah, I can take that one. So what happens there is Luna is actually being wrapped. So instead of you holding native Luna, which you would on the Terra chain, you're holding a version of Luna, which is called wrapped Luna. And this is an ERC20 token versus what would exist on the Terra blockchain. So what it does is it gives you the price exposure to Luna, and you can use it for Ethereum dApps, but you won't be able to do things like stake it or borrow against it on the Terra chain until you unwrap that. And what you can do to do that is you can use the Terra bridge it from Ethereum over to something like a Terra Station wallet, and then you can use it to stake to a validator on Terra to earn, fixed yield, or not a fixed yield, but a staking yield. Or you can use it, on something like Anchor, where you can bond it, and then you can use it as collateral and borrow UST against it, and a variety of different things. So the wrapped Luna version of Luna is nice because you get that price exposure and you can use it on Ethereum. But I believe that native Luna is much stronger and it has much more utility on the Terra chain. And with a lot of these new protocols launching like Prism and a variety of these other things, we're gonna see even more utility for cryptocurrencies like Luna. And the way that it exists on Ethereum is it's seeded with liquidity providers, liquidity just like any other asset there. So people provide 50% wrapped Luna, 50% whatever the other asset is, and that provides the liquidity for people to trade against that on some of these Ethereum dexes.
Fantastic. That was a great explanation. And I think that a lot of people have seen wrap tokens and weren't quite sure what they were, how they worked, if it was some fork that wasn't affiliated. So clearing that up is definitely useful for the community. So guys, that does bring us to the end of the AMA today. Thank you so much for joining. I think this has been super informative and really interesting. And I'm sure the community will tell us that they felt the same way.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Is there anything you want to leave people with? Maybe where to follow you guys, your website, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, people can follow our Twitter account on Twitter. I forget what the exact @ is, but you can just look up Terra Luna on Twitter, and then you'll be able to follow us there. We post a lot of updates on there.
Excellent. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great one. And to the AMA viewers, catch me back here next week with another guest we'll be announcing soon.